nothing gets my dander up more than talk of workplace meetings. I think a lot of them are a waste of time. Okay. I think a lot of them are carried out by people who want to appear like they're doing a lot of work and they're busy. But in most cases, it's a BS meeting where you don't actually get any useful information. Except for one meeting that I do every day with my team, which is the morning production meeting that has like a specific purpose, right? We're going to decide what we're going to cover on the show, who's going to produce which stories. You guys get the picture. Anyway, so this story caught my attention because it has to do with the CEO who fired a bunch of people for missing a meeting. So a CEO recently fired 90% of his staff because they missed morning meetings. But the story actually gets even crazier. So let's get into the details and you'll see where the twist comes in. So according to Fortune, on November 15th, Baldvin Oddson, the CEO of Wyoming-based musical instrument online store Front, the Musicians Club, that's the name of the company, fired allegedly 99 of their 110 employees for missing an 8:30 a.m. meeting. Now, Baldvin sent the following message via Slack. For those of you who did not show up to the meeting this morning, consider this your official notice. You are all fired. You failed to do what you agreed to. You failed to complete your part of the contract, and you failed to show up for the meetings you were supposed to attend and work for. I gave you an opportunity to make your life better, to work hard, and to grow. Yet you have shown me that you don't take this seriously. Out of 110 people, only 11 were present this morning. Those 11 get to stay. The rest of you are terminated. Get effing out of my business right now. Sounds like a lovely guy. The employees who work remotely from different parts of the country were told to sign out of all their accounts related to the company, return any company property, and consider their contracts terminated. Now, remember, he says he fired 90% of his staff, 90%. Keep that percentage in mind as I give you the most important detail to the story. The majority of those employees were unpaid part-timers and interns. You can go ahead and eat a. Why is 90% of your staff unpaid? F off. Okay. Wow. And by the way, I ain't attending any meetings if I'm an unpaid intern. Okay. Meetings are the bane of my existence. Like, why would I put myself through that torture and not get paid for it? That's insane. And I know I'm extreme in the I hate meetings camp, but come on. Come on, Waz. Come on.
I'm completely fine with meetings as a concept, but not before it's 10 a.m. Nothing important should be scheduled before 10. Because like people are groggy, people are just getting out of bed. People like had to, wake up way earlier to get themselves together. 8:30? Like 9 o'clock, okay, fine. 8:30 a.m. we really need to be on this meeting and we need to show up in person. That's where I'm just like, all right, you're doing a lot. But meetings, I think generally speaking, aren't the worst to just touch base and like everybody touch down and get some FaceTime with different people on the team, whatever. But yeah, this guy is clearly a psychopath maniac about this. If he's firing everybody, we're just like, if 90% of the people didn't come, maybe the thing that you asked them to do is the problem and not the 90% of the people that didn't show up.
I think the problem is that most of his workers are unpaid.
Yeah, that's
the problem, right? And so let me do something that should be taught. Let me teach something that should be taught to the brilliant minds at places like Penn Business School, Wharton Business School, and all of that, okay? The productivity of your employees is almost solely dependent on pay. The more you pay, the more they're gonna care. If you're an unpaid intern or like a part-time worker who's barely making any money and you're expected to join in on this like early morning meeting, yeah, you're gonna have far more people who just aren't gonna show up. And like, the entitlement of this guy who's relying on a huge percentage of unpaid labor, essentially putting out statements like this, like mocking these workers, which, by the way, most of whom are classical music students looking for work experience, right? So it's the typical intern thing where, you can't get a job in your profession unless you have experience, but you can't have experience unless someone hires you. And the only people willing to hire you are the people who are willing to give you an unpaid internship. So I kind of hate all of this. I hate how the whole system works, to be quite honest with you. But this is the system. And I love the fact that not only did this guy lean into it, he took it to an extreme. So a job listing from earlier this year for an unpaid operations manager. Operations managers should not be unpaid. They should not be unpaid. Okay, for an unpaid operations manager role with the company received 51 applications or applicants. The listing said the job would provide in-depth understanding of e-commerce operations within a competitive market, practical experience in managing and optimizing online sales platforms, and a high potential for full-time paid conversion in 2025. Now, according to sources who spoke to the site Music Tech, there was no warning. There was no warning about the meeting. So there's even a possibility that all these unpaid people would have even joined the meeting had they been given proper warning. An anonymous source at the Musicians Club subsidiary, the Brass Club, tells Music Tech that there was virtually no notice of a meeting. At around 8:23 a.m. Central Time, Oddson, that's the CEO, threatened anyone who did not show up to be fired, adding that it sent the group leaders and longtime workers into a frenzy. According to one intern who took to Reddit following the event, there were some workers that had worked with the CEO for literal years and had no warning about something like this. A big problem was that because all of the workers are unpaid and remote, they all had different schedules. So apparently it was difficult to set a specific time for attendance, which was what the CEO was so mad about. Now, despite everything wrong with the situation, Oddson believes that he absolutely did nothing wrong. Everything he did was right. In fact, he's patting himself on the back. And while some attempted to cancel me, he says, it has completely backfired. Our traffic has surged to 20,000 views. Sales are at an all-time high, and we're receiving hundreds of applications daily. He claims that he's also receiving lots of messages, up to 300 messages, including from CEOs, industry leaders, and major newspapers requesting interviews. Probably because you're such a douchebag that these reporters want to write about you, to emphasize how much of a douchebag you are. I love that he's getting calls from reporters and he's like, I'm such a hot shot. Everyone wants advice from me. Firing those individuals was the right move for our organization, and we are stronger than ever. If you're stronger than ever, why did you require literally dozens of unpaid workers to make your business run? Just think about that. So I hate this guy, and he's got a dumb name. Sorry to all the, what was the first name? Baldvins out there.
It's funny because I find myself at my age now stuck between shedding my self-identity as a young, progressive, cutting edge, future facing person, and just a crusty old get off my lawn individual. I feel like I'm constantly straddling both fences these days. And with the question of unpaid interns and blah blah, every intern should get paid, even if it's not a crazy amount of money. People should get paid for work. Yeah, just as a principle, that should be what it is. And guess what? If you have an intern and you're legitimately teaching this intern or two, giving them free game, basically knowledge of this industry, this work that they can't really pick up otherwise. And, in the meantime, yes, they are fetching coffees and getting stuff out the copy machine, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, at least you're putting time, if not money, into the development of these young people. Yeah. Here's the thing. When you got 90 of them, we know you're not doing that. We know for a fact that you're not doing that, dude. You're just exploiting people.
Yep.
That's it. And so, like, yes, the more progressive person in me is like, shut up, pay these people. It's a job, whatever. A little bit of me does kind of understand or even respect the concept of dues being paid, of working your way up to something, of starting somewhere and then reaching the ultimate goal and checking things boxes off as you go. I understand the concept of paying dues, but this is far beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I don't know if I would word it quite like you're wording it, right? Like, I kind of don't like the paying your dues language, but I do think that you gain very valuable experience by working your way up, right? And also through paying your dues, you build an appreciation for everyone that you're working with, right? Maybe you've made it to middle management or something, and the people who are reporting to you, you have a certain level of respect for them because
you've done their job. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think there's a lot of value that comes from that. So I think you're making a really good point. So we'll see what happens. I mean, he's saying business is better than ever. I somehow doubt it. I know, totally. How is business better than ever when you've just lost like the majority of your workers? Like, there's no way.